Welcome to Go Vote Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Geri Simon, a League member and your host. Each program we talk about important public policy issues. We hope you'll discuss those same issues and that at election time you'll be ready and willing to go vote. This program we're going to talk about immigration, and our guest is Diana Morales McFarland. She's an attorney with Curley Immigration Law. Welcome, Diana.
Hi, thank you, Geri.
Well, let's delve right into it. There's been a lot of controversy and fear surrounding immigration and misinformation too, due to the role and action of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So let's start out by telling our viewers, what is ICE and what is its job?
Okay, so ICE is, like you mentioned, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're a branch of the Department of Homeland Security. So their main role is to enforce the laws within the United States. So they're the officers that go out and arrest undocumented individuals within the United States.
Okay. And what are the primary immigration issues then that you're dealing with in Omaha?
Okay, so you look at the main immigrant population that we have here in Omaha. We have a lot of people from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, people from a few African countries, from a few Middle Eastern countries. And you kind of look at, for the most part, those countries have a certain pattern. People from, I would say, Mexico or Central America, I would say their immigration violation is entering the country unlawfully. They've been here for a lot of years, just unfortunately don't have any status, while others maybe entered the United States lawfully and overstayed their visas. They didn't return back to their country within the time frame that they were allotted. So it kind of differs, but for the most part, you have people that have overstayed visas or just simply entered the United States unlawfully. If most of the time they have contact by ICE because maybe like a traffic violation or a criminal offense. That's what I see most of the time. That's how ICE knows that they're here unlawfully. Some people, we have a small population that maybe had an immigration record in the past and maybe have an outstanding order of removal. Those people would be on ICE's radar because they're considered a fugitive of ICE, and so they're looking to basically execute that removal order and deport those people back to their home country.
Okay. And you explained how people really encounter ICE, particularly in Omaha, and how has that changed over the years? What about since the new administration has come to power? I think that's what a lot of people are interested in. What are the latest changes? What's different?
Everything.
Okay.
I would say within every single branch of Department of Homeland Security, I've noticed a dramatic difference. So under ICE, I've seen a dramatic increase in arrests. These are people that maybe have just a simple traffic violation, are now in what we call removal proceedings or in front of the immigration judge and in the immigration court. Something that is not an infraction, let's say. Not anything serious, but an infraction can lead them to be placed in immigration proceedings. Also, we've seen people that may have already been in removal proceedings, meaning ICE they already acknowledged or they recognize that they're here unlawfully, they're already in front of the immigration judge, and we've seen people, they committed another offense, even just a small misdemeanor, get rearrested by ICE, even though they've already paid a bond, bonded out, and continuously see an immigration judge. We've had people get rearrested.
So would there be a second bond then?
A second bond,
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously, higher immigration fees, higher attorney fees, it makes it extremely difficult for an immigrant and their family when they're in this situation. As far as the benefit side of immigration, so another agency within the Department of Homeland Security is U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. This agency is supposed to adjudicate applications and grant benefits. So let's say, for example, somebody applying for the residency or their green card, people applying for naturalization. I have seen a shift and processing by the adjudication officers here in the Omaha field office. So we also have a USCIS field office here in Omaha where people go and attend interviews for these types of benefits. Cases that normally are clear-cut and would have passed last year, I feel that sometimes the USCIS officers are trying to identify any which way to deny the applicant. So that also has become extremely difficult, and that the benefit side as well as the enforcement side. Obviously, with more people getting arrested, you have more people in removal proceedings. So that is also clogging the immigration court docket. I've seen a change also in the DHS, the government attorneys, where they say, I feel like they're always saying, oh, that individual is a flight risk or the security to the U.S., even though they have a small traffic infraction. And even though they may have attended all their criminal hearings or their existing court appointments with the immigration court, they're alleging that they're a flight risk. So I feel like I've seen, in my opinion, in my practice of law, a dramatic change in all those areas. Anything related to immigration, I feel that we've seen a dramatic change.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that those proceedings have become much more confrontational?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They're becoming longer, so something that could have been resolved within 2 to 3 minutes is now becoming 30 minutes.
Okay.
So I've attended bond hearings in the past where it's 2 to 5 minute bond hearing, and lately they've been like, my last one was about 30, 35 minutes.
So this is real disconcerting change for clients and their attorneys as well.
Right, and it's hard, honestly, Geri, to advise individuals about, what's the possibility if I'm in this situation, because I could have given an answer with certainty in the past, and now I'm like, I don't know, I feel like things change daily, so I can't really give you a solid answer or solid advice. We just have to go with the flow and expect to be flexible and adjust accordingly.
Okay. The one thing you talked about was that the ICE might find out with like a traffic violation. How do they find out?
What I've seen in the past is if somebody has to attend a hearing to go pay a traffic violation, we've had people get arrested out when they leave the courthouse. People that are placed on probation, we've had ICE be present when they go attend their go visit their probation officer.
Okay.
We've also obviously when somebody is incarcerated, ICE will do sweeps in the jails and they identify the people that are undocumented.
Okay. So the question is, how do you know you're dealing with ICE agents versus a police officer? Do they have to show ID?
That's a good question. Normally they don't. I mean, sometimes they do, but I've had stories even within the past month or two where one of my clients had I would say a 30-minute conversation with an ICE agent, and at the beginning, the ICE agent identified themselves as a probation officer. One of their coworkers was on probation, and my client was helping them interpret because he spoke English and Spanish. So my client was being the Good Samaritan and helping his coworker by interpreting, and so they started questioning him. And he's like, well, I have an attorney. And they're like, oh, well, you don't need an attorney. I'm not doing anything. And at the very end, they're like, oh, we're ICE. So by that point, ICE had already taken all of his information. So my suggestion to individuals is always ask for an identification from an officer in order to determine whether it's a police officer, an ICE agent, or a probation officer, as that person claimed.
Okay. And one thing that we've read about or heard about is that in some communities, I'm not sure about here, if ICE agents sometimes wear jackets that say ICE but then say police, and it seems like it could be maybe deliberately so confusing to people as to who they're really dealing with.
And I have heard stories, and I've seen things across the U.S. You'll see news stories and you'll see pictures where it does say Omaha ICE, so that they do wear that. But also they don't have to wear any identifying clothing. A lot of times they can just look like any ordinary citizen. Okay. They could be an undercover ICE officer, but yeah, a lot of them just wear ordinary clothing.
Okay. And do ICE agents does ICE have to notify local law enforcement that they are taking action within the community, or are they just completely separate on their own? They don't.
I don't believe that they have to notify them. I'm not sure, but I don't believe so. I would imagine in some cases where maybe it is a bigger case, and I think that they might notify them in some instances, but I don't believe that they're required to notify them in all cases.
Okay. Okay. Well, we wanted to get to was that we have the ACLU did a lot of work in terms of helping people with immigration issues, and they have a graphic that we want to share with people, and it's really quite detailed in terms of if ICE agents show up at your door. So we want to share with our viewers, if ICE agents do show up at your door, what should you do? So if you could kind of run us through these suggestions.
If they show up at your door at your home, the first thing is do not open the door. Because once you open the door, that welcomes them to come inside your home. So don't open the door. You can communicate with them through a window or have them slip the information under the door. So through the door, you want to ask them who they are, what agency they work for, and what they want. You know, what are they there for? Don't open the door if they say they have a warrant for somebody specifically. You can, if that person's not there, you can be like, this individual's not here right now. But also, in order for them to have permission to enter your home, they need that warrant, and it has to be signed by a judge. And this is where it gets a bit confusing. It's not an immigration judge that signs these orders, and a lot of ICE officers may also have a document just signed by maybe one of their superiors, one of their supervisors, but that also is not sufficient. So it's very important to really carefully review this document because it has to be signed by a judge, and an immigration judge is not authorized to sign these types of warrants, and neither is an ICE officer or ICE supervisor. Okay. I would say by and large these people, ICE officers generally don't have the required warrant to enter a home. If the ICE officer wants to leave information, they're more than welcome to. Through the door. Let's say, for example, and we have had cases where people are nervous, scared, and they still open the door, or maybe somebody that wasn't aware of the fact that maybe other people are undocumented in the home, open the door. So let's say they come inside the home. At that point, ICE can also make what they call collateral arrest. So let's say they're looking for somebody specifically, but they can also make collateral arrest in the fact that anybody there that's undocumented, they have the right to arrest them, basically.
Okay. So they would ask for identification from some papers from?
Yes, okay. And that's happened. And that's unfortunately common because ICE agents, again, don't normally have the requisite warrant to come in and arrest somebody, and so much less have a warrant for everybody that's located or inside of the home at the time. So we do unfortunately see collateral arrests. If for some reason or another an ICE officer or agent does go inside your house, remain silent. Remember, it's important to remember that regardless if you're talking to the police or to an ICE agent, you still have, or an individual, and regardless if they're documented or not, have the same rights. Everyone has the right to remain silent. Yes, an ICE officer will ask you for your name, and it is important to give your true name, and they may ask for identification. But again, you have the same rights whether you're undocumented or not, and whether you're speaking to a police officer or an ICE agent to remain silent. Everyone has the right to see an attorney. The difference between immigration law and criminal law is that immigration law is not criminal law. It's more of an administrative law, so more civil. So somebody doesn't have the right for the government to pay for an attorney. So if you're indigent and can't afford an attorney, if you're, let's say, arrested for violating a criminal offense, you have the right to an attorney, and two, you have a right to have an attorney paid by the government. Because immigration law is not considered criminal law, they do have the right to an attorney, but they do not have a right to have an attorney, meaning where the government will pay for that attorney. So it's always important, and I always stress this to everybody, it's not just the responsibility of one person to have information of a qualified, experienced immigration attorney. Everybody in that household should, because what will usually happen is somebody will get arrested. Let's say, for example, the husband or father of the household. Their one call, and they do have the right to contact somebody, will most likely be with their partner or maybe a responsible adult in that household. So it's important that everybody within the household have access or the information of an attorney, because it would be that person that will be contacting the attorney on behalf of the individual that's incarcerated. So it's important.
And that would be something that the person would need to contact, like if the person opened the door and ICE came in and said, okay, we're taking this person away, they need to immediately contact the attorney.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's important also to not resist. I think some people that are scared sometimes, I've heard of instances where they try to run or are reluctant or resistant to being arrested. At that point, it's important to not resist. There is what they call a charging document in immigration law, and it's the ICE officer that basically writes up kind of the fact scenario of how ICE encountered you, a review of your immigration history, criminal history, or biographic information, whether you have any applications pending with immigration, if you have family members that are U.S. citizens or permanent residents here in the United States, and how many times you've been inside the United States, how long have you been here, because those are all important factors to determine whether somebody is eligible for a benefit. So it's important that, I mean, once you're in immigration or ICE custody, that you don't resist, and because if you do resist, they will most likely notate that on the charging document, which then can affect your eligibility for a bond.
Okay. And are they required to tell you or other people in the household where they're taking you when they arrest you?
For the most part. So the first thing that happens is that they will most likely, the first place they'll take you is to the ICE office, the DHS building, and that's where they take all your information, they print you, or they print that individual, and then draft that charging document. And then from there, ICE doesn't have an ICE detention facility here in Omaha.
Okay.
So what they do is they contract out with different counties, and they use whatever available spaces available at those county jails. We used to have a lot of ICE people detained by ICE in Douglas County, but recently there's no space available. So what they're doing is kind of busing them out to Hall County and Grand Island. You have people in Marshall County, Hardin County, Iowa, and this makes it more difficult for individuals, one, to have access to their family, and have access to legal counsel. It's extremely difficult to be able to speak to your attorney, even over the phone. I feel like there's impediments in being able to communicate with your client over the phone. Either they have to call collect, or you have to have a credit card on file and speak only in 5-minute increments. Obviously, each county has their own procedures, and each county differs. So sometimes it is extremely difficult to communicate with our clients, depending on where they're at.
But the client would know where, once they are fingerprinted, et cetera, at the headquarters here, they should tell them where they're taking them, so they can let someone else know.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so would they have a chance then to contact an attorney to let them know, hey, I'm being taken to whatever county? And
if you already have an attorney, that would be the likely scenario if you already have an attorney. But if you don't have an attorney, I think it's extremely difficult to. I mean, you can't say, let me, look online, see who I can call.
Right.
So that's why it's important for the family member to have the information of an attorney. Also, for people out there that may have a loved one or a friend detained by ICE, ICE does have a website. It's called the ICE Detainee Locator System. So you just type in their name, dates of birth, country of birth. If you know their A number, which is their alien number, which is their identification number for immigration purposes, it will tell you where they're currently detained and the address and phone number of that detention facility.
okay. Well, that's good for people to know about. What about if, so we talked about ICE coming to your door, to your residence. What about your place of employment? What are things different?
That's more difficult because usually in these types of encounters, ICE will usually speak directly with the HR department, and they'll do a review of employment records. And that's how they determine basically who they want to detain at that place of employment. So a lot of times individuals don't know that ICE is there until it's too late, and they call them in. So the important thing is don't resist again. Don't resist, don't run, and remain silent.
Okay.
It's a lot harder to fight that because you can't say, oh, where's your warrant? You can't come into my home because they're already at the place of employment, and I've already spoken usually with the HR department. So my suggestion there is don't resist and remain silent.
Okay. And what about other public places? I mean, does ICE, restaurants, shopping, stores, do we have ICE action that takes place in other public places besides the home and in places of employment?
I have heard stories.
Okay.
I haven't heard a lot in Omaha specifically where ICE will go to a restaurant or like a shopping center or anything like that. What I have heard in Omaha is that ICE will make traffic stops.
Traffic stops?
Yes.
Okay, explain that.
I have heard of that. And again, this is different. Because usually when you get pulled over, you expect to be pulled over by the local police department.
Right.
I have heard within the past couple of months that ICE has made traffic stops, and I really don't understand the legality of that. ICE is not here to enforce traffic ordinances.
Right.
So in these specific cases, I'm not sure what their cause for pulling somebody over is. So these are just stories that I've heard from individuals. Obviously, it's not one of my clients directly that this happened to, but I have heard from others that this is happening. Now, is this from improperly trained ICE officers? I do know that the ERO, which is Enforcement and Removal Operations, did hire a few new ICE officers. So I don't know if this is, because they were not properly trained, or is this going to be a new trend? I'm not for sure, but time will tell.
The other thing for people to know is that police officers are not going to ask you to show papers. That's not part of their job. If they stop you for a traffic stop, ran a stop sign or something, they're not going to ask you, are they? That's
right. That is that is what we've gathered from Omaha Police Department. So we applaud them for that. My understanding is that they've worked extremely hard to build this relationship with the community and the Omaha Police Department. So they feel that their job and duty is to enforce the Omaha ordinances and the laws here, not federal immigration laws. So based on that, and my understanding is that Omaha Police Department should not be pulling you over and then asking whether you have documentation to live lawfully in the United States.
Okay. And then in other cases too with crimes, I'm thinking that the police want people to report them. So if you have a domestic abuse kind of situation,
yes, yes, it is, and that's what I know Omaha Police Department's mission is. Obviously, is to arrest criminals, people that commit criminal acts. And it is extremely difficult if you strike this fear within the immigrant community. It's difficult for that immigrant community to then report these crimes. So let's say, Geri, that somebody was the victim of sexual assault. Let's say an immigrant was the victim of a sexual assault. And if they believe or fear that if they call and report the crime to the Omaha Police Department, that the Omaha Police Department will then turn around and report them to ICE to get them deported, there's a high likelihood then that victim will not report the crime.
Right.
And so that's a negative effect. If a local police department were to start enforcing federal immigration laws, the negative impact on that local police department is that you're going to have less people report these crimes and more criminals out on the streets.
And I think that's been shown in other communities too. I think there was a survey done in Miami that showed that people were reluctant to call because they were afraid the police would be enforcing, act as ICE agents rather than.
And I'll be honest, even with Omaha Police Department saying that we will not use your immigration. We don't ask for immigration status if you're a victim. We will not report you to ICE. I mean, it's still these immigrants still have this fear that. Yes, they will. I've heard stories that it happened here. And so there is still a fear, and that is what OPD is trying to overcome. Right. They've worked really, really hard over the years to build this trust and this confidence. So, yeah, if they were to start enforcing immigration laws, all that would go out the window.
Okay. Well, that kind of leads to, let's just talk real briefly in our time left, about the whole idea of a sanctuary city and what it is and what it isn't. What does it mean? We had in the last mayoral election, the mayor say, we're definitely not a sanctuary city, and the opponent said, oh yes we are. So talk a little bit about what that means. Is it really meaningful?
Okay, well yes, we have heard this a lot on the news, haven't we? Well actually there's not, I would say, a proper definition of what a sanctuary city is. I think people have this image in their head of churches being, a sanctuary. But this term came out and about, and a law that was enacted in 1996, and it was basically, in the most basic terms that I can define it as, a city that is not compliant with this immigration law that was enacted in 1996. Okay. So since then, I don't believe that there's been a city found to be non-compliant with this law. This means that a city would have to go out, let's say, for example, ICE wanted information on a certain individual. It would mean that the city would have to blatantly refuse to provide them that information. And my understanding from the Douglas County Corrections, because they're the entity that houses people that are detained, they don't deny information to ICE. If ICE requests information, they provide it.
Okay.
I think the opposite is an entity then just outright providing information to ICE without ICE requesting it. So you have your two complete ends, somebody that denies information to ICE and somebody that willingly provides that information. So I don't believe that we're in fact a sanctuary city. We don't refuse information to ICE when it's asked.
Okay. The other thing we wanted to talk about is that so recommendations to immigrants in Omaha is, I think, be prepared, whether you're documented or undocumented. How does someone who would need legal assistance or think they want to prepare for that if they would ever need it, what do you recommend? Should they go to the ACLU website? I mean, what kind of?
That's a good question, because I feel that unfortunately some people, when they seek legal advice, it may be too late. Mm-hmm. Or it's already when they're in a problem and it's rush. If we want to do anything to adequately defend you, rush. And sometimes you don't have enough time to get the adequate evidence or documents that's necessary to defend somebody. So ACLU is good. There's also an organization called AIC, which is the American Immigration Council. Okay. They have some good information. And kind of just like basic know your rights, basic what is immigration law, how do people immigrate to the United States? Because there's basically two ways. You come as a non-immigrant, meaning you're coming here just for a temporary basis, or you come here as an immigrant, meaning I plan to remain in the United States permanently. So it kind of gives you those avenues in very basic terms and gives you a lot of good information. Okay,
and I assume also that one way is like people find out how to hire doctors, lawyers all the time. They talk to friends and coworkers for recommendations.
Word of mouth is really big in the immigrant community. Okay. Extremely important.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this information with us. I hope we get a lot of good information for our viewers about immigration law and ICE in Omaha.
Well, thanks, Geri. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. So for the League of Women Voters, I'm Geri Simon, reminding you to inform yourself about the issues, and at election time, go vote Omaha.